Yesterday, members of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee began reviewing the suspicious activity reports related to the shady business transactions of the Biden family and their associates. Now, this comes after months and months of stonewalling from the U.S. Treasury Department, which finally agreed on Monday to allow the committee access to these documents. So, how might this play out? Joining me now to discuss this and much more is Congressman Andy Biggs, who is a member of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, as well as the Judiciary Committee. He is also the chairman of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance. He represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Tony. Good to be with you.
So the review has just begun, but what can you tell us so far?
Well, so far, the only folks that really have access to it are our staffers, and we think it's going to get wider, so people like myself can actually sit down. But here's what we know: we know that we had 2 whistleblower suspicious activity reports that indicated money being transferred to Biden family members. We also know, coming out of what the staff has already seen, what Chairman Comer has already seen, is that $3 million came from a Chinese energy company that had ties to the Communist Party. $3 million transferred into a shell corporation. And in that corporation, there were disbursements to Biden family partners and Biden family members. So you had Hunter, who's the president's son. You had Jim, who is the president's brother, and then his daughter-in-law, who is married to now deceased son, Beau, and then actually dated Hunter as well. She received funds. And then there's several other Biden family members which we are trying to identify. So this thing seems to be going far and wide. But the most important thing here, Tony, is this transfer of money. We can't find any service or any kind of product that was transferred, any kind of consideration that was transferred for that $3 million that was transferred just a couple of months after Joe Biden left the Obama White House as vice president.
So no connection with any type of service, consulting relationship, just money coming into a shell corporation that's distributed to Biden family associates.
Yeah, I mean, that's particularly troubling because, if they were actually doing something, providing service, you might say, well, okay, iffy, dangerous, but not perhaps illegal and perhaps not influence peddling. But here you have the daughter-in-law, former daughter-in-law of President Biden. She's receiving money, and she's not an employee of this company even. So what would be her tie? Why would she be getting money?
Well, is there a requirement when you're doing? I mean, if you were doing consulting with a Chinese energy business, would you have to be registered in some way?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, Tony, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. You would have to register as under the Foreign Agent Act, and they didn't do that, obviously. So, I mean, you've got that going on, but I think and that's a problem. We haven't really enforced that as much as we should until the Democrats decided to enforce it against Republicans.
Well, I know.
But
just a second, Andy. Didn't someone go to? Wasn't someone prosecuted over that related to President Trump?
Yes. And it was. I knew you were going to ask me the name, but yes, he was. Yes,
the former campaign chairman, the first campaign chairman for President Trump, was prosecuted for not registering as under the Foreign Agent Act. So right there's a violation of law. You would think that the Democrats would be jumping on board. Say, they should have at least been registered.
Well, I know you're facetious when you say you thought the Democrats would jump on board to enforce the law, because we both know that they're not going to jump on board here. So they didn't register, and that's troubling. That should be prosecuted for sure. But more than that, though, Tony, this seems to be just a straight up cash transfer, and that gives rise to all of the suspicions of this buying influence, peddling influence, the corruption of the Biden family, and that's what we have to get to the bottom of, and that's why hopefully we'll get. There's more than 150 of these suspicious activity reports, which are supplied by banks when they give them to the Department of Treasury when they see a suspicious transfer or activity on a part of a client, customer, we need to get to the bottom of that. They've been withholding, the Department of Treasury has been withholding all these. And one other point that people should realize, the Biden administration changed the rules to prevent Congress from having ready access to these suspicious activity reports. That's part of the problem here.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Congressman Biggs, there have been a number of flags that have been raised through the suspicious activity with the Biden family, much more than normal transactions might trigger. Is that correct?
Yeah. A way to think of this is if a regular person were to get, or business were to get, one suspicious activities report over 5 or 10 years, that would be extraordinary. But for an individual and for a family like the Bidens to get more than 150 suspicious activity reports, and that could mean everything from strange wire transfers from nations like, I don't know, China, Ukraine, Russia, that the Bidens all received, that would actually trigger something if the bank who had a relationship didn't see any kind of reason for this transfer coming in. So they would report it to the Department of Treasury. And that's what's raised these red flags, Tony. That's why banks, financial institutions were sending in these SARS reports. Really unusual to get so many, extraordinary.
I want to get to the border, but I've got to ask one more question on this, because some would say, well, this is just politics. You know, you had the Democrats were going after President Trump over Russia, the Russia hoax, Ukraine. Now the Republicans are in control, and they're going after the Biden administration for connections with China. But there's something different here. This is not based upon some kind of political false dossier that was put out there. He said, she said. This is actually our own government records that are indicating there's suspicious activity, and you just follow the money, and it raises these questions by itself.
You know, that is exactly right, Tony. It isn't. We're not out there looking through receipts of their own credit card receipts. We're looking at, and this is why we started here. We're looking at actual filings by banks to the U.S. Department of Treasury. And that's what we want to see. And they've hidden those and been very recalcitrant about turning those over to us. This is not a fishing expedition. This is something where we're actually looking at reports detailing suspicious activity on the part of the Biden family. So it's critical that everybody kind of understand this is not just tit for tat, political
right.
kind of retaliation. This is actually looking at documentation that was filed indicating that they had committed some kind of suspicious activity, and it's on government records.
Very quickly, Congressman Biggs, were you disappointed that the Democrats did not show up to the Homeland Security hearing on the border yesterday?
Yeah, Tony, but not surprised. They didn't show up to the one 2 weeks ago in Yuma, Arizona, with the Judiciary Committee. They don't want to know what's going on. I'm disappointed that they don't want to have a meaningful discussion, debate, and you know what they're missing out on? They say there's no problem on the border. Go down and listen to the farmers, ranchers, local officials, local business people, the hospital in Yuma, medical care providers, the social safety network, and all these communities that are being overrun by this porous border that's very dangerous. Yeah. Have the sheriffs, local sheriffs, talk about the crime that's happened. Bringing people to talk about the fentanyl overdoses and the fentanyl that's being ravaged through our communities. I'll tell you, the Democrats simply don't want to hear that.
You're absolutely right, but they're going to hear about it on this program. Congressman Andy Biggs, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Tony. Thank you.